In a world with entirely too many shows about cars, this is another pointless automotive podcast.
Hello, friends.
What's up, guys?
Hi, Chadwick.
Hey, Frank. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, It's been great. How are you? We're back here at our home away from home, our true calling over here at Car Park.
Yeah.
In not so sunny today, Pleasanton, California. Should we start off talking about weather?
We can. We don't get to do that very much over here.
We don't. No. We have plenty of friends that like to talk weather on their podcast, but not on ours. We rarely talk about weather. You know what we do talk a lot about here on another pointless automotive podcast?
Cars?
Specifically bad cars.
Oh,
we're good at bad cars.
That was a judgmental tone,
well,
my friend.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, like...
Now I'm going to drink.
You should.
It's officially 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, 9:20. Okay.
Okay. Fair enough. Salute.
Salute. So the thing is like, yeah, we tend to traffic in bad cars, and if you're watching at home right now via the magic of the YouTubes, there's a car that's very not our speed. This Aventador with the doors open behind us. I'm not talking about something like that. That makes a poor backdrop for today's point of discussion. Right. Because that thing's got, I don't know, there's a lot good about it. Probably chief among them, like a screaming V12. Yeah. But today I wanted to talk about what cars are actually pretty good cars, despite their engines. Because there's a lot of cars that are out there that are like, hey, like, oh, that car is great because of its engine. I would say even our Galant VR4s, I think a lot of people like, oh, it's just kind of like a ho-hum sedan, but it's got this legendary engine in it.
Sure, if you get a base with like the
1.8
single overhead cam, or
sure,
they could have stuck any Mitsubishi power plant in there, it wouldn't be the same.
Wouldn't be. And so there's a lot of cars that are great because of their engines. But I wanted to figure out what's the inverse of that. There's got to be cars that are out there that are pretty good cars in spite of having a not particularly good engine.
Sure. Yeah, I got a few on my list. As a matter of fact,
he's got a list. I actually have a list too, and I'm curious, like, how much of this is going to cross over. I know I did the bare minimum amount of preparation.
Preparation H, if you will.
I do. I definitely preparation to the H out of it. You want to just find like what? And of course, there's lots of ways to define what a bad motor is, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like maybe they're unreliable. Maybe they're just not a good fit for that car. Maybe both. Maybe they're underpowered. And there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat.
Meow.
Yeah. Meow indeed. What are your thoughts on the subject?
I'm going to start off with a little Iron Duke action, my friend.
Guess what's also on my list.
Cheers to Iron Duke. R.I.P. But not
who, me or the
Duke? The Duke.
The Duke is dead. Yeah.
My first Iron Duke candidate, the original Pontiac Fiero.
Okay.
A car that was focused on MPGs. Sipping that fuel at this time period was what it was designed for. But tell me, if you're going to build an MPG-minded car, that you're going to go for mid-engine, wedge beauty, sports car looks, and then jam a 2.5-liter four-cylinder in there that makes 90 horsepower on its best day of its life.
Well, then you would have had an MR2, a first-gen MR2 would have been a good car, because that car's got a great motor.
That's why it's not on my list.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why it's not on the list.
And it's not. So hear me out. Like,
I'm hearing that.
I've been looking at Fiero GTs lately, the late model runs, 86, 87, 88 are the ones I'm looking at, because that's when you could get that 2.8 with 140 pony powers.
Which is obviously a better engine, but certainly it's not winning any special list of special engines.
60% increase in horsepower.
Oh, it's certainly a better engine.
An extra gear.
It's not a great engine. An extra car with a great engine.
But an extra gear in your manual?
No, you know what that car needed? What's maybe our favorite? No, what's maybe our favorite thing here on the pod? Created by GM.
You would have put a quad 4 in it?
I think that car with the quad 4 in it would have been kind of dope. That would have
been a lot better. Yeah, more revs, more power.
Right. I think a 4-cylinder is proper for that. Yeah, the V6 is great, but I think
the hot swap right now is people swap the supercharged 3800 in, and that's got to be absolutely bonkers.
Didn't people do North Star swaps too?
That's not as pretty.
I don't know,
the 3800 is dead nuts reliable.
It is
supercharged line.
It's like all world reliable.
I'll take a supercharged.
Now we got the
38.
Iron Duke though. Come on.
So that's the point, right? Like, so the Fiero, and they realized that, right? They
Sure.
flipped the image
They
into
tried
a
to right
sports
that
car.
wrong.
Yeah, they redesigned it. They put that the V6. I know it's not a great 2.8, but to be honest, compared to that Iron Duke, it was a saving move right there, and it kind of worked. It got hot again, but that original Iron Duke, 2.5 liter 4-cylinder making 90 horsepower.
Yes.
How do you do that? That's like an engineering marvel in itself.
So I have that on my list, but in like the 82, 83, 84 Camaro.
I put it as the 81 Camaro. Yeah, that was the same deal.
Yep. So that 81 was the last year the earlier body style, and then the
Which I liked.
quote unquote IROC, like the traditional F body.
Yep, that's
up
the one
to
I
the
liked.
90s. So I've never driven I've never driven one of those with the Iron Duke. I have driven, I think it was an 84 Berlinetta with that 2.8.
The V6, yep.
Which was not at all a rocket ship. I can't imagine then just like surgically removing 35 horsepower, or whatever the delta was. Which is, when you go from like 120 to 90, 125 to 90, that's a big jump. It's only 25, 30 horsepower.
But at that low a number.
At 500, it makes not that huge difference. But
like-
when you're
it's like
taking
when
a 30% cut,
It's like an exhaust on a Miata or a slight tune. Like, you notice it, right? The seat of your pants dyno.
or pulling a spark plug, it's like that equivalent of power
That'll
difference.
help. But I had that same one, the 81 Chevy Camaro, because it was, like you said, the last of that style, which had good V8 power plants before. Like, not
Sure.
great, but, traditional V8. That's a cool-looking car. They've aged very well, I think. Mm-hmm. But to stick an Iron Duke in it for its last year, so like an FU to the car, right?
I kind of would like an 82 or 83, like luxury trim, like Berlinetta Camaro with the Iron Duke in it.
Oh, God.
Just because it'd be it's just the novelty of that car at this point would be hilarious.
4-speed manual, right?
Like, how many of those? There has to be far, far, far fewer of those left than there are probably any other spec of Camaro.
No one saved them.
That's what I mean. Even like some of like they only made like 1,500 of this one really special specification. Yeah, people kept those. Like, none of these.
Sure.
There's got to be a dozen left in the nation, and they're probably all in Detroit. Like,
A lot of them have automatics, probably old person car.
yeah, boy, now that with an automatic, absolute dog, just undrivably.
Yeah, 0 to 60
brutal.
in 12 seconds, probably.
Yeah. Iron Duke. Was the Iron Duke ever? You know what though? I bet you the Fiero is probably the best use of the Iron Duke,
It's got to be, right?
other than like the male Jeeps.
Yeah.
Duke. Iron Duke.
But I had to do that because that was a car that just has great styling pretenses.
Sure.
You look at it, you're thinking sporty all day, and boy, that power plant. What do you got on your list?
Well,
man,
that's the
for
thing. So, like with the Iron Duke and the Camaro,
Sure.
that was kind of like a tradition for a little bit, right? So you could, like, sporty car, fuel crunch era. So you have the 4-cylinder
Yep.
Iron Duke in the Camaro. You had the 2.3 in the Mustang. A car I'm really partial to, but if I'm being honest with myself, needed a better motor.
Oh.
Effectively every single rear-wheel drive Celica.
Yeah.
Which I love those cars, and like if I sit here and say the 22R is a garbage motor,
You're gonna get
I will
burnt to the ground.
yeah, I will literally
Yeah.
be skinned alive in the parking lot here.
How dare you?
And they are a great motor in like truck applications.
Right. And reliability tests.
Their
too, right?
reliability,
Very durable.
yeah, they're very durable.
Low maintenance,
They
cheap
make good
parts.
torque, but they run out of steam at like 4,000 RPM.
Good for a truck.
Yeah, no, they're great in a truck application, and all the the 18R, 20R, 22R, those cars would have been so much more interesting, and I like those cars. Like I've owned
a handful.
of just the Celicas, just one. I had an 81 Celica, which is the last year of that second gen kind of roundy body style. First year of the 22R. It was an automatic 3-speed auto car, but I paid $150 for it in high school.
Speaking of slow.
It was slow and it was underpowered, but like, I mean, everything of that era was underpowered. But if you had any of those rear-wheel drive Celicas with any of the stuff that was offered overseas, where
Sure.
you had the twin cam 18RG in like the baby Mustang looking.
There's some turbo apps too,
first
right?
gen.
Not too long from there. Talking
There
overseas. right?
were in like the third gen Celicas. They had the 3T GTE, which was like a twin spark,
Pretty cool.
4-cylinder turbo motor. think it was good for like 160 horsepower.
That's a huge jump.
Yeah,
That's a huge jump.
And that was kind of top of the line. But then you can also get that for a GE twin cam that was in the MR2s. They had those in JDM applications. The GT, I think it was the GTR or GTTR. I don't know. They had
they made
all these
more
different
power
monikers that we never got.
than the US version too of that engine, which is cool.
Yeah, and so
Higher
it's interesting. It's just, and I know there's reasons for why we got this engine and trying to emissions and whatnot, but very good car, very cool car. Cars that have greatly appreciated in the last decade.
Absolutely.
Despite their engine.
And sporty muscle car looks, kind of like a blending of sports and muscle. It's a very cool looking car, but
it's what that Iron Duke Camaro wishes it was. It's what that 2.3 Lima, Pinto 4-cylinder
wish it had.
Mustang really wish it was.
You think an Iron Duke Camaro and an early Celica at a bar just drinking and like complaining about how their engines are letdowns, kind of like their kids are letdowns.
Then a Chrysler Daytona 2.2 walks in and they just look, the skipping of the piano player stops playing, and looks over and the tumbleweed comes in
before they got a turbo. Yeah.
Yes. So that's on my list.
Good one
of good car, motor.
Yeah, good. I mean, here's a good one.
I still want one though.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Good luck finding a clean one now.
I know, right?
So here's a good one.
What's good?
Mazda RX-8.
I've got it on my list. Also, yeah,
man,
tell me
great
about it.
handling, good looking car. I think the later ones did look better, the facelift ones,
right? Yeah,
versus the early ones.
End run.
But what we got, so we came off the heels. It'd been a little while, a few years off from the RX moniker being used. We had a twin turbo FD that was just gorgeous, sculpted body, lightweight, good twin turbo rotary, good power, and we came out with this thing, and we were excited. But we have a non-turbo rotary now that made pretty good power, 232 to 240 based on the years.
Sure.
With only 159 pound-feet of torque because there's no turbos there, right?
Why are you hating on an S2000 like that? What are you doing?
There's a weight difference. Well, yeah, I think the RX-8's like 200 or 300 pounds heavier than an S2000 too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm hating. It was not fast right from the get-go.
But at least it was reliable. Wait, hold on.
Yeah, I can't say that. So not fast, guzzled gas more than a V8, more than a performance V8. You had to premix the oil with the fuel versus like wearing out your rotary engine prematurely. Putting oil in your gas, guess what that did? O2 sensors, catalytic converters. Yeah, you get to eat those. Or you take them off in a state, which sucks here because we get smogged. Not reliable. Interior was okay.
They're okay.
Didn't hold up too well, but I mean, talk about a letdown. It could have been a very special car. It should have been a very special car if they put a turbo rotary in that thing.
Can I go hot take alert?
Let's hear it.
I also have RX-8 on here.
Yeah.
And RX-7.
The non.
Just full boat.
Get out of here.
I'm very
man.
glad they exist, and I'm glad that it's different because if it because that's the hot ticket, right? If you just LS swap every rotary, you put an LS in.
If I had an FD, I'd keep it all original. I'd take really good care of it. It's not really impossible to keep a rotary in good health.
I would too, and if I was going to swap, I wouldn't do an LS because now you've just made yourself a Corvette. You just go buy a Corvette.
Sure.
And so I'm glad that Mazda decided to zig when everyone else zagged, and I'm glad they all have rotaries in them because they add interesting character. They're buttery smooth.
Super
they're just
revvy.
Incredibly interesting. However, I would say even in the RX-7s, like if those cars had a comparable piston engine in them, I bet you they'd be more valuable right now. I bet you they'd be more sought after.
Though. It's a Z car.
Well, here's the thing: the FD looks so freaking good.
It does.
That car, I don't care what motor's in it; it's special. Maybe not the Iron Duke, but
or a Miata engine or something. It wouldn't have been that.
If it was a Miata engine with a turbo on it, making the same power, I bet you that would be more. I bet you that would be more sought after and more valuable. If it had the equivalent of an SR20 DET in it, from the factory.
That's a Z car, though, man.
With a turbo, no, it's different. It's smaller, it's lighter, lower. You keep the same kind of front mid layout.
I understand it's a little different, but the problem is like the market.
I'm glad they didn't do that. I'm glad we have a rotary weirdo.
It would have been cannibalization.
That makes me happy.
Right? The Z car and that would have been competing with the same market people.
I don't think Mazda was carrying what Nissan was doing.
No, if they put an engine in that was rival to the Nissan, like a traditional engine, that would be
Mazda's all about being rival with Nissan.
Yeah, but they don't want to compete in that same. The rotary is what made the RX-7, is what I'm saying. Like, without a rotary, I don't think it would be as recognized as it is today. And people love the rotary.
Maybe not the earlier cars. Maybe not, because then, an FC is effectively just a different 944 in both styling and execution.
And power plant for sure.
If it had a 4-cylinder in it, right? But I think the FD was such a good looking car and such a more pure sports car than the other stuff. But I think if it had the same level of power, tunability, just not a rotary, just a piston engine thing.
No, I don't know.
I think it would be more valuable. Would people be less afraid of it?
It's super valuable today. That one.
Oh, it
you
is.
have a 1.3 displacement. You have 2
It's not as
turbos, and
valuable
you're
as a
putting out
Supra.
V8
It's not as
power
valuable.
of
It's
the
not as
time.
valuable as an NSX, and not as valuable as a Supra.
It's getting recognized. Like a clean FDR. What's the most expensive? I guarantee there's one that sold for $100K.
Probably
Right?
Probably
Like a low
100.
mileage
Yeah,
original.
with like 18 miles on it or something.
But they're valuable.
But that's a
It's a valuable
$250,000 Supra now, which blows my mind and hurts my soul. But
Sure. Well, and I don't think there's anything too special about Supras.
I don't know.
No offense. But the RX-7, I don't know, man. That's its party piece, But the RX-8 didn't get that cool engine. It got a meh.
it got more weight.
It got all the reliability. Definitely got the weight. Got all the reliability issues. Just didn't get the torque and didn't get the personality.
No, it didn't. So yeah, I agree. I don't know. I guess we slightly disagree on the RX-7 now.
Yeah, rotary for life, dude. If I had one,
to be clear, I'm very happy that there is a beautiful rotary sports car that has existed. I'm glad that's a thing,
100%.
and I'm glad it went that way. I think if it was a factory piston car, I think in a vacuum, I think it would have been a superior car.
No, we'll disagree on that one.
Okay. You know what's I think not to be disagreed with?
What's that?
You mentioned Supras. Mm-hmm. The 4th gen Supra is like this all world. That's why people. I mean, there's memes about how good that engine is in that car. Like
Yeah.
the 2JZ, literally with Nas or Nas, depending on how you want to pronounce your hip hop artist. But the Mark III Supra, the original Supra Turbo, at least here stateside.
Sure.
3-liter, 7M GE. All they did was eat head gaskets. Now you can make power out of them and some other things, and you can mitigate that. But having to take a factory motor that traditionally blows head gaskets every 80,000 miles from a company that's known for building like hyper reliable feats of engineering.
They're 3-liter.
Yeah. Well, that too. Yeah, that's I almost put that on my list too, but then I decided I was putting too many Toyota products on here, which is interesting because it's like people like 80s and 90s Toyotas are like the pinnacle of reliability and the gold standard of this, and then like I left the 3-liter Toyota truck motor, the V6, off of my list because that would have been a third good vehicle shitty motor.
Yep.
And I didn't feel like picking on Toyota, but it's funny to think about like, oh, actually, if you sit there and look, like Toyota had some clunkers of engines.
But you got to pick
and
around
again,
those, dude.
22R is a different. Yeah, it was an application misfit than what I'm complaining about here. Because the 7M, when working, pretty decent motor. It's not great, but it's not bad. Heavy car, but that motor made good torque.
Yeah, good and good looking.
Good torque. It just was not reliable, which kind of flew in the face of why you buy a Supra. It was like, hey, it's a reliable, relatively affordable, comfortable GT powerhouse.
Good looking car.
Yeah, good looking car. And they, overseas again, you can get the one JZ GTE, 2.5 liter twin turbo, 280-ish horsepower. But yeah, just Supras are supposed to be reliable, and that made them not reliable. Was that 7M motor that just swallowed head gaskets?
Yeah.
So you mentioned Supra. I had to bring that one.
You had, and then the Mark IV followed up and got all the fame, so it kind of made the value go down, right? Of the Mark IIIs and the.
Not anymore.
They're going up.
Yeah, they're worth money. Like those were like
6 to 8.
Any Supra that wasn't a Mark IV used to be relatively inexpensive, and now they're all pricey.
Hard to find manuals too. There was a lot of automatics in those.
I think the manuals just had the shit kicked out of them, and there was some attrition there.
Yeah.
Versus the automatics were kind of the last to get modified and beaten up, and so they're easier to find. They were treated nicer,
It's true. It's a good car though.
Good car, good heavy GT car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd still love the scoop one for
Yeah.
sure. I'm always looking. I'm always looking for a decent
Always
one.
looking. You're a looker. You're always
Always a
looking.
looker.
That's right. What are you looking at? What's on your list? What else you got? What else you got in the bad motor department?
Yeah, this one's gonna ruffle some feathers out there in the bird community, but
Oh.
Suzuki Samurai.
Okay.
So absolutely being recognized. It's boxy goodness, small little Japanese off-roader.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it was christened with a 1.3 liter carbureted engine making 60 horsepower.
Is that the same family that was in a motor that was the same thing that was in the Swift? Like the 4 cylinders that you can get in the
Was
Suzuki
it?
Swift?
No.
That was also a 1.3, I
A
thought.
Swift. I don't think the Swift was ever carbureted, was it?
No, but I think the base motor was. I think it's the
Maybe.
same motor, just carbureted and probably cammed different.
Yeah,
stuff.
I'd have to look at that. But yeah, this is a sad little engine for an off-roader. And once you put big wheels on their off-road gear and weigh
Yeah,
down
no.
that 60 horsepower engine, you were not getting there. So unfortunately, the Samurai, which I think looks great, I think a Samurai, especially a tin one
Tin
without
top,
the removal,
Tin tops are cool.
Good lord, good little box. The issue is its follow-up act, the Sidekick or Geo Tracker, got a proper engine and it got a 1.6 liter, and I think that one made 90 something horsepower, 95 horsepower,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Upgrade
which is,
ya.
it doesn't sound like
Upgrade ya.
much, right? We're
Right.
talking like you said before, a 35 horsepower jump when you had that's like 50% of your original, over 50%.
Boy, imagine if you put swap an Iron Duke into that thing.
I don't know if it has the room for that big block.
I know, for that big old
Piece of
sack
American
of Iron
muscle.
Duke.
But anyway, like the hot thing is to do is like people do swap that Sidekick
Sure.
Tracker engine in, and then you have a really good engine. But it is kind of bummed out by that carbureted little anemic 1.3. I mean, like you know what it is. Off-road gear is very heavy. And
Yes.
these guys put these big wheels, big tires. You need more power to turn the tires.
Like
You have-
588 gears.
yeah, and you have the brush crushing bumpers. You have a winch that weighs half the vehicle's like curb weight. Now you're down to like effectively 20 horsepower.
Yeah.
So
Those are fairly reliable motors, though, right?
they're decent. Yeah,
Yeah.
But the thing is the power level for what people ended up using these vehicles
Right.
for. So that swap is hugely popular. You keep it Suzuki, and you get a ton more horsepower with a 1.6. So
Do people honestly care about quote unquote keeping it Suzuki?
I think there's a little bit.
There's some hardcore
Everything
Suzuki
swaps,
honks.
right? It makes it easier for sensors
Okay,
and everything
yeah.
like that. And you are stepping up to fuel injection too versus carburation. So that's
Yeah, that's
Kind of a big deal, right?
Big part of it right there, yeah.
and you keep the same. I do think the Sidekick looks cool. It's
Yep.
It's a lot more 90s looking, but I do like the
Get
Samurai
Get
a
it in
little
pink,
more.
yeah.
I'll take that Samurai with a 1.6 swap, and a lot of people do it, and that's a good vehicle
There
once
you
you
go.
do that swap. So I think
Let's
that's
pick one
it.
up. Let's go.
Yeah, oh my god, go grab a clean Samurai now. It's
What clean Samurai?
Yeah, it's super
They
pricey.
don't exist.
You have the rusted one that's been sitting in someone's backyard, half covered by a tarp.
$6,000. I know what I have.
Yeah. Bro, it ran when parked in 1982.
Can I fire off a car that I own?
Of course. Does it got a Porsche badge on it?
It does.
What?
The early
Jack stands.
924, which you know, it's I'd say it's probably like on the Mount Rushmore of like cars that are easy to complain about, like an interesting car that has kind of a crap motor.
Should have a Volkswagen badge too, but that's another story.
Sure. Or an Audi badge, depending
Yeah,
on
like
your,
a mix.
on your flavor.
All three. Like a
Yeah,
dynamic
exactly.
car.
That'd be, yeah, this unholy auto union.
Oh boy.
The thing with it is, I don't think the motor's actually that bad.
Yeah.
110 horsepower,
Out of a
2 liter, single overhead cam. They're just,
I mean, but we're talking
Like-
prime Malaise era.
sure. So
Right.
that for 110 out of a 2 liter for the era, actually, it wasn't good, but it wasn't
Yeah.
brutally bad. You know, I mean, you look at the Volkswagen equivalents, right?
Oh,
that
you
was in the
can't.
first gen
Yeah.
GTI and stuff like that. It's very similar. The thing is the motor, it doesn't have anything down low, and when you rev it out, it feels like it doesn't want to be there. Like it's like it's like the person that's at the party, and they're at the party,
Drinking
but
in
you
the
can kind
corner,
of tell they don't want to be at the party.
checking their phone a lot.
And you ask them, you're like, oh no, yeah, no, I'm cool. This is a good party, man. Yeah, man, good to see ya. And then they like, I gotta go over here now. Then they like sulk in the corner.
Aw.
You know, maybe pet the cat. It's on the cat tree in
Aggressively.
the corner. You know, and then they're like swear under your breath, and you're like, what? You're like nothing. Like that's yeah, yeah, nothing. But
Does anybody swap that 16 valve 2-liter GTI engine in? Because that sounds spicy
like the
to me.
later, like a late run 16 valve out of like a Sirocco or something.
How
Maybe.
cool would that be?
Well, what people do is they swap
The 1.8
out
turbo.
Yeah, that's what do.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
But that little keep it NA with that 2-liter dual.
You see, I think it's fun to do the Volkswagen Audi 2-liter turbo because it's like basically
it makes sense.
it's on brand. You know, it's on brand to have the Audi Volkswagen motor in it.
That's fair.
With the turbo, the E888.
Put a modern trans and diff in it.
The A888. Yeah,
Could be fun.
yeah,
Could be a
well,
lot
I mean, you keep the transaxle thing alive.
Oh, that's fair.
Transaxles and back.
Can I handle that power?
Only one way to find out.
You have to do some fortification there.
No, they're good. I mean,
cool
worst
resto
case
mod.
scenario, you start doing like 944 turbo parts. I mean, people hop those. People
That
do
makes sense.
do big power applications in those cars. So there's a way to make it work. But good car, very motor.
Yeah.
Classically so. I mean, I'm kind of beating a dead horse, complaining about a bad motor in a 924. I mean, that's kind of the car's hallmark, unfortunately, for it.
Well, that's it. Like the 944, like addressed all of that, right? Didn't the 944?
It did, and
they
even
were
the
running
early cars weren't like
great.
I mean, you're talking roughly 150 horsepower.
But they were running parallel at a time, which I thought was funny because they were still selling the
87,
924.
88 with the 924S. But yeah.
I think that's kind of the move. Get that later 924S.
Yeah, I'd
that's
rather have a
kind
924S, I think, than a standard 944.
I'd take it over at turbo.
Ooh, hot take.
924S late run, like last year.
Yeah, so in 88, they were 87, 88 only.
Yeah, I think that's the move. With a good paint color. I think that's
Sure.
the play. I think those actually fetch a little money, actually, though.
A little bit. They're
Yeah.
still not.
We're not scooping for $2 or $3 grand, I'll tell you that.
No, not anymore. Those days are over. What else you got, homeboy?
944s used to be like that cheap, too. Remember 944s for 5 to 6
Because
for a good
because
one?
the clutch would be gone, and it would cost you an enormous amount of money to get a clutch done. And so
Or the
you can get them
interior,
for
the
nothing.
seat would be ripped, which totaled the vehicle effectively.
Yeah, and the dashes fall apart.
Oh, they did.
But
They did.
yeah, what's then of course a 30,000 mile timing belt interval
Oh.
is always nice.
So what do I have on my list, my friend?
What
I
is
have,
on there?
God, I did a lot of GM stuff, and I apologize, GM fans, listeners.
No, you don't. You don't. You can stick at the GM.
You know,
They're
I had
okay.
to pick the car that went back to the future with a power plant.
How did I not think about that one?
Think of the power plant they stuck in that
Yeah,
thing,
the
dude. The old
PVR.
2.85 liter 6-cylinder making
Yeah.
130 horsepower. You're gonna make an iconic vehicle. You're doing that much cocaine. You don't pick a weak vehicle, my friend. You go big or go home. And how long did it actually take, effectively, an early DeLorean to make it to 88 miles an hour? I know someone's had to have
Eventually?
tested that. There's no way it did it in a parking lot.
No.
Not in real life.
No.
They fudged it.
What would have been the better? What would have been the better motor? So think about that. So
Yeah.
the DeLorean Corporation. So they bought that. It's the PVR V6. So that's Peugeot, Renault, Volvo
All
group.
shared it. Yep.
They all shared that.
They all designed it, right? They all had a hand in engineering.
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
remember correctly.
It was like the Airbus 380 of the the V6 automotive world.
It was like the village bicycle.
Well,
of
imagine,
our moms.
imagine, right? Exactly.
Passed around.
Yeah, aggressively.
Everybody worked on it.
Exactly. Yeah, it got very. They're very leaky. But imagine if they just went to Volvo and they got the. I said Volvo. Calm down. And they got the
not what I
the 2.3 liter turbo that was in like the 740 turbo, 760 turbo. You know, it would have been more power, more reliable. More reliable. That's what I just said.
I think that's the biggest part of that. It's more reliable.
It would have had. It just would have been a better motor. Would have been lighter. Would have been way easier to work on.
GM 350.
Yeah, but then you're just making a I don't know, a counterfeit Pantera. I don't know, which is okay.
What's wrong with that?
I'm okay
my
with the
friend?
counterfeit Pantera, but I think that Volvo turbo 4-cylinder.
I mean, if you're gonna still use that engine, yeah.
Yeah, I think if
there's so many
you're
more
shopping
options.
at the same general store.
I mean, Peugeot had some good turbo engines, but not passable in this country.
Boy,
unfortunately.
a French engined Northern Ireland built.
Well, a French, a Swede,
Cocaine
Swede and
traffic
an American
fueled.
walk into a bar and they build an engine.
Right. Yeah. Yikes. Good
So-
call. How did I not have that on my list?
Yeah, so here's the point. Like, it's very parallel to the Fiero, right? It's this sporty looking car, but But the power plant department just
On a Lotus chassis.
yeah, it's so weird. But a good looking car, cool, dynamic looking at least.
Yeah.
Stuck out.
Yeah.
Movie fame, and it still had a power plant. I don't even know what is 0 to 60 in that car. And
Probably
it wasn't especially light.
high 9s, low
Not-
10s. Yeah.
I know Malaise era, I get it, but still, like you make a car that special, put something special in there. And I think a lot of people look at it and they think of it as this icon. And if you ever drive one, which I've ridden in one before,
Okay.
it's not
Claptrap?
It's not exciting.
Yeah.
It's just not an exciting engine. I think that car deserved something special for a power plant. I think that's a big letdown.
Rotary?
A car that looks like that. At that
Back
point,
to your special, yeah.
yeah, I'll take a rotary.
Yeah.
Yeah, 130 horsepower.
Somebody somewhere's had to have rotary swapped to DeLorean, right?
They V8
Just to go
swapped
straight
them. I'm
back.
sure they've done all kinds
Yeah,
of fun
I mean,
stuff.
just to go
LS swap
full-
for sure.
Full wonky, just go rotary.
Well, that's insane, my friend.
I'm here for the insanity.
They could have put the 2.8 from the Fiero in there, made more power.
I could have done anything.
Yeah, I mean anything's better than that. So a DeLorean made my list. It's just too cool looking, and what the hell?
I've got a I don't want to call it another hot take, but I'm going to go with one where the actual motor is kind of in the name of the car.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the Subaru Impreza 2.5 RS with the EJ25.
Yes.
That when it's running properly, it's okay.
You're gonna make a head gasket joke, aren't you?
I don't need to make a head gasket joke.
We
It
all
makes
know.
itself,
We
my
know.
friend. Because that's all it's not reliable. It was mildly underpowered. I think it's probably because it was roughly 160 horsepower in that application.
I thought it was close to 170.
Ooh, I swear it's like 160.
Is it?
I'm going to research
Oh,
while
I'm feeling 170.
I talk. But the thing with that motor is, yeah, it's unreliable, and the turbo app.
The looks of the car, though.
The
That's
looks,
the
the
problem.
balance of the car, there weren't a whole lot of available all-wheel drive. We live in a different time now when like all-wheel drive performance cars are kind of, I don't want to say the norm.
Kind of are, though.
Almost.
Yeah.
Um, that was the outlier, was that car.
Welcome to pre-WRX America, my friend. Before we got the 2002 model year
Right.
Impreza WRX, our Subarus were mildly spicy. We had a turbo legacy for a little while, which nowhere close to the original WRX in power
Yeah.
and performance. But it had a good sealed deck engine. We could talk about the 2.2. But God, that car was all the looks. I mean, good
I
WRX
wonder-
STI swap.
Well, I
candidate.
wonder why we never got the EJ20 turbo edition that was under production forever. I mean, was it simply
Smog?
I mean, that's the easy answer, but I refuse to believe
it
that it
was,
couldn't have been made smog legal because
It
it's not
would've-
like in 2002, all of a sudden it was able to be here.
Right, but those earlier ones, making it smog legal would have been the end run of that engine. The cost would have been too high. They don't know what the market was like in America.
None of that engine.
It's a
They made that
combination.
same motor, at
It's
least modified forever.
They didn't know what that car, a performance Subaru, was going to sell. People buying Subarus back then were buying like Outbacks and wagons, and
Yeah, I don't know.
it's not the same buyer group.
I always wonder if. So pretend
again?
we split the difference, my friend. I was
Is it right in
160,
the
you were
middle?
70. It's 165.
Okay, cool. I'll take that.
And 166 pound-feet of torque.
That's pretty impressive. Impressive.
Oh, wait
Hey,
now.
watch it.
But so I wonder, we spend too much time talking Gallants. So if the Gallant,
Bullshit.
let's say when the Gallant VR4 came out, it
Yeah.
was like waitlisted, and it was like it was this absolutely heralded in both like critically and publicly, like held up, and it was
Owned a
the
race
thing
car.
to get, right?
Yeah.
To the point where when the Evo 1 came around, they were like, okay, yeah, let's bring this stateside too, right? And so then we got the Evo run. How quickly it would have been until Subaru we got the
We
WRX
would
here.
have got the GC turbo.
That's what I mean.
immediately.
Like when 1994 rolls around, 95 rolls around, and then we've got that too.
Well, Subaru run the.
Are we blaming the Gallant? Did the failure, the quote unquote failure, which wasn't really fair because it was a limited production deal.
And it was faster than the Legacy Turbo or the Sport or whatever the hell. It didn't even have an official name.
Yeah. But I'm saying if somehow everyone ended up clamoring for the Gallant VR4, but because that didn't happen, is that why we never got the Evo and the
Potentially.
WRX until the early 2000s?
We had DSMs though.
We did, but there was no like 4-door I don't know, like
Right, though?
but those DSMs were a different deal.
They were, but same power plant.
Correct. And that's why I don't buy that emissions is why we didn't get...
I do think the Subaru was emissions. I think that 2-liter, the original, like the 22B, I'm sure that thing would smog its face off, right?
Maybe not the 22B, but like, what if they just took the power plant that was in that early turbocharged Legacy, that EJ20,
I'm making the money
EJ22.
sign on my fingers. It just would have cost them too much on an unsure market, you know? Eventually they did it. The WRX, I mean, without the WRX, God, think of car culture. We would have like missed out on so many cool imports after that. The Evo wouldn't have probably come over at all, right?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. What if the Evo was here on day one? I bet you we would have gotten the GC, the GC8, the Juicy 8 WRX,
Isn't it?
and then I wouldn't be complaining about the 2.5 RS because that would have been like the base model, and we would have had that chassis.
True
The
story.
motor should have been in.
I want to build a 2.5 RS, keep it NA, like do exhaust, intake work, maybe a tune, some good suspension, and just have it because it's still good. It's like 500 to 600 pounds lighter than a WRX.
Sure.
So it's still desirable to me. But that engine, yeah,
I don't know.
I'd just WRX swap it or SDI
could.
swap it.
You could, what else? Do you have anything else on your list? What's your list looking like? You're
My
running
list has
dry.
petered, my friend.
Okay. Can I shout out a couple, also rans and some honorable mentions?
Are you going to mention the V8 6.4 Cadillac engine? Because I did have that one. I thought that was too on the nose, like too.
No.
Because that engine was horrid.
Yeah, and the car it was in wasn't particularly good.
Yeah,
either.
it wasn't but it still looked like a traditional Caddy.
That
which
was
should
just
have
a bad
big,
motor.
lumpy V8 in it, right? But
Yeah, well, it was
Not one that
lumpy,
gets
but
stuck on
it was just
four-cylinder mode.
It was just lumpy because it was like, yeah, it was broken. Similar, like I thought, like like the Oldsmobile diesel stuff, but those were just like a boat anchor engine and a boat anchor car. So that
find
doesn't
one of
really
those still
fit.
running. You can't.
But like the E60 545 and 550s, which you can get with a manual, and they run well, but it's just the engine is so unreliable with expensive things to fix, like timing chain guides that fall apart, valve stem seals that leak, PCV systems that fall apart that then blow out your already weak valve stem seals, leaky timing covers that require the heads coming off, and just really just terrible stuff that like it craters the value of those cars, along with all the other stuff that breaks on that E60 Generation 5 series. I think the cars look pretty decent. I think they've aged well, despite Chris Bengle's best efforts. And getting one of those with a manual, they're good cars.
Absolutely.
Just the motor is a boat anchor. And then pre-LT1, not ZR1, C4 Corvettes.
Yeah. The early ones were
it was at the L98
underpowered.
Or like the early was 84. You had the Crossfire injection.
But you know what though? It's with like cars like the early Nissan 300ZX twin turbo that like really put a fire under like the domestic's ass. When Japan started shipping over, and that was the first. So we got to quote it. 300 horsepower car that had like 75 more horsepower than a base Corvette.
Was
the
it
ZR1? Not
I guess that was the first Japanese 300 horsepower Japanese car.
Because it was sold in '89 for model year 90.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what was second? Was 3000 GT second?
That and the NSX came out in '91.
Okay.
Super came out in '94. The Mark IV. Anyway.
Yeah, 93.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, 93, and then same with the RX-7, which was under 300 horsepower.
Yep. So the 300ZX was the shots fired. Nissan, man, old Nissan, you can't go wrong.
That's right.
Good, so much sports car stuff coming out of there.
We're not going to talk about the new Z on this list.
No, because it's good.
And I've never driven it. I can't bitch at it.
That's a good car. But yeah, that's all I got, man. Those are good.
all.
Those are good ones. And that, unfortunately, that happens, man. You get a good-looking car or a decent platform, and then you put a turd of an engine in it.
You know what I have on here? Honorable mention, real quick.
Uh-oh.
Honda CRZ.
Yeah, could have.
I mean, it's weird because there's electric components involved, so it's a confluence of factors. But yeah, there's got to be people doing like K swap in those, right? There has
100%. Yeah. Not to mention they pull Ks out of the later ones anyway, so they're actually literally the K swap candidate or the donor.
You just call it the CRK.
Yeah, just buy it to take the engine out.
That's right.
Cool, man.
CKY.
Would you like to get quizzical?
I would. Let's get quizzical, quizzical.
And it's your turn to guess, so I'll cue something nasty up.
Yeah, throw something dirty at me. I'm going to close my laptop while you get this all queued up. And I will also explain what in tarnation we're doing here, which is our automotive print ad quiz game, where Chadwick is going to find a piece of automotive print ad from a magazine or some sort of print publication. He's going to read the body and print copy of this ad while excising out overly identifying information such as the make and model. And then it will be on me to then have 3 guesses to guess within 10 minutes of time this make and model of this particular vehicle. As I said, I get 3 guesses. I can ask for hints in between those guesses should I get them wrong. And that's going to be how this cookie crumbles. So Chadwick, what you got for me? What are you going to throw in my direction?
So today's print ad quiz subject is a 2-page spread. The vehicle occupies 50% of the top of the page across both pages.
Okay.
1 image, rear quarter panel shot at that rear quarter angle on the driver's side.
Okay. Normally it's the front.
Well, they're really trying to showcase something. So there's your big hint out of the
baby
back.
got back. All right.
The big headline, notice how it handles corners.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Tail out, perhaps.
maybe. The ad reads as follows.
Oh.
It shouldn't be immediately apparent, after all. Performance is a rather subtle sensory experience.
Is it?
In the case of the new blank, performance has been enhanced by singular styling. The hood line is sleek and low. Translation, for you laymen out there, I guess, aerodynamic.
Oh.
You know they had to mention aerodynamic.
Yeah, you have to.
The long roof.
1986.
The long roof, ending in subtly curved corners, accomplishes more than an increase in rear headroom. It reduces drag. Had to mention that as well.
Yeah.
Exercise the 16-valve, fuel-injected engine, and you'll soon discover a tenacious cornering ability. Well, that has to do with the engine. That's 4-wheel double wishbone suspension and a rugged front stabilizer bar at work.
Ooh, rugged.
You'll also discover the blank blank has a rear window wiper / washer, an adjustable steering column, comfortably contoured seats, and a surprisingly comfortable price. In fact, at blank, it's never been our way to cut corners at any price.
Ooh.
10 minutes on the clock. What are we talking
Boy,
about, buddy?
not a lot to go on other than it. The mind's eye cues this up as a wagon, which I don't know is the case, but that's what the way this feels. The way the ad is laid out, it's got a rear wiper and washer. The blank, 16 valve. So, I mean, it's effectively a V8 or a 4-banger, probably a 4-banger, because if it's a V8, they're not talking 16 valves. It's whatever. Did it say, it said 16 valve, I'm assuming, I'm trying to remember, did you say dual overhead
It didn't
cam?
say that, but it said fuel injected.
Fuel injected
It's not
16.
a carbureted engine.
16 valve, long roof. It's got some niceties like an adjustable steering column and a rugged front sway bar. My first instinct was to say this was like a Volvo turbo wagon, but there was no mention of turbo at all. Low sleek hood, aerodynamic, that makes sense. But I don't... A lot of the type copy of this sounds like it could also be a domestic manufacturer. But a 4-cylinder domestic manufacturer, fuel injected wagon. Didn't say anything about a transmission. And there's a value proposition at play.
Everybody said that about
I
their
know.
cars. What a deal.
Boy, I mean, I guess it could be Volvo. If I'm thinking it's a wagon, I mean, that was the chief wagon. It's got 4-wheel independent suspension, wishbones front and rear. So that wouldn't be anything like a, could it be like a Corolla wagon? Which they didn't really make a sport wagon. They had like the all-track stuff, but that doesn't read like that. It could almost maybe be a hatch, like a Corolla FX 16 GTS. I don't know about subtly rounded corners. To get this party started, I'm going to say this is a... I'm going to say this is a Volvo 245 wagon. So 240 wagon. Final answer. And I'm not happy with my answer, but I'm just trying to get the party started. So this would have been end run. Actually, I hate this answer, but I've committed to it. So just tell me I'm wrong.
You are right that you're wrong.
Okay.
It is not a Volvo 240 wagon. How can I help you, my friend?
I don't know if I can be helped.
Well, I can still charge you from sitting on the couch, right? That's how this gig works.
True.
I'm not here to help you. I'm here to...
How about this? Tell me what I already know. Is this like a 4-door? Would this be generally considered a station wagon?
I knew you were going to ask. That's a big giveaway. It is not a station wagon.
Okay.
That's huge.
It's not a
good question.
Not a station wagon.
Great question. You have a little over 6 minutes on the clock.
So that's going to bring me back to. Perhaps a hatch of some kind. So back to the FX16 GTS I was thinking of potentially before. I guess it could still be. Doesn't have to be a hatch, but the long roof. Subtly rounded corners. No mention of front-wheel drive, wheel-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. So, it makes me not think it's probably not a Subaru product. I wonder if it's a Quad 4 product. Because it does make me think maybe... Oh, man, I'm lost at sea on this one.
Oh, no. You got this, man. You got this.
I'm going to go with...
16-valve, fuel injected.
Yeah. I'm going to go...
4-wheel double wishbone.
Yeah,
that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
I think you could get the FX16 GTS in that. I'm just going to say that. I'm not super confident. But it was a value play sort of a car. I'm going to say this is call it a 1987 Corolla FX16 GTS. Final answer, Bob.
We are not talking about an FX16 here, my friend, but on the thermometer, you got so much hotter.
Yeah.
You got so much hotter. How can I want to get you there.
Is this produced by is this made and sold under the brand of a domestic manufacturer?
It is not a domestic vehicle.
So this could be a Civic Si. This could be this is not a 323, I think, in any guise. It could be like an MX-6, maybe, although a lot of those were 18 valve. It was like a 3-valve deal or whatever. Not 18, that math doesn't check. What else? I want to say, boy, adjustable steering column, long roof.
Low hood line.
Sleek. Yeah. I think I'm going to say this is like roughly a 1990. I'm just going to take my last shot.
Oh.
I'm just going to say this is a 1990 Honda Civic in SI trim. Final answer.
This is it, huh? Final
That's
answer.
it.
Notice how it handles corners. Honda, the new Civic hatchback.
Okay.
Not an SI,
Not
a
an
DX,
SI.
but still, you got
DX.
there.
Okay.
Good job, my man. It's a Civic DX, which is a big deal because it came with a dual overhead cam engine.
Right.
Or not a dual overhead cam, it came with a 16
valve
valve engine,
right.
single overhead cam. But
So
it
1.5, right?
Yeah, and it had the big thing is the wiper was the giveaway because a lot of these cheap
Yep.
cars, and it was an icon. That's the EF hatch.
Mm-hmm.
So very iconic car, big deal when it came out. These sold like hotcakes, and man, I still think they look good.
I wonder how it's funny because there's a lot of like sporting talk, right?
The
and
DX,
so I
remember
wonder.
the CX was the stripper one, right?
Correct.
So they sold the
and
DX.
then the DX, and then you had the. You could still get then it was LX in this generation. Did they make an EX in this generation?
Nope, this was not,
It was
not
DX?
for a hatch. Remember, there's also the coupes.
Right. Yeah.
right.
Because the LX and the sedan. So LX sedan.
You couldn't. The hatches came in CX, DX, and SI flavor.
Got it.
Eventually.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
And then the EG came 2 years later.
Correct.
So this is the EF hatch, which did really good for Honda. Was a big deal. Double wishbone
Yeah, I mean, it
suspension
was-
was rare on a cheap car.
For pretty much the 80s and up to the mid 90s, like that was the quintessential Honda.
Kind of is, right? And that's
Yeah.
what my guess. If you asked me for a hint, I would have been like, "This car is way more common than you think." And to find a clean one now is nearly impossible.
Right.
Even a DX.
Yeah.
DX got a little more power. The CX had the little lamer engine, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a good looking. I mean, can you ask for a better looking car? I mean, for a hatch.
I mean,
at
the
that
SI.
time, fair enough.
But that's
or,
it.
or the FX16, which was very attractive.
Yeah,
too.
those were cool too. Which excellent.
Cool,
All right.
Rad. Good
Well,
job.
I got my. I limped my way there.
Yeah, Honda Civic trip you up every time.
The old Honda Civic.
It was
Something
good.
rare and unusual like a Honda
I
Civic.
know. I thought, well, we got to give homage. I love the EF hatch. I think that's an under celebrated car too, because I think the EG gets a lot of fame. The EK,
Yeah.
I think the EF is a little. It's like rounded but boxy still. It's kind of cool.
No, they're good. Those are good. And yeah, the description's actually pretty on point. If you
What gives it
listen to
away?
the
Yeah,
ad type
the
copy.
16 valve with a double wishbone. Not many hatches had.
And
that
like the
setup.
long roof and the low nose.
And the wiper was a bonus.
Be
The CX
aerodynamic.
didn't have that, so the CX
Oh,
ad wouldn't have had that wiper.
Upgrade, baby.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Want to celebrate with some hard drugs? Maybe some
We should
PCP
should
project-
participate in
Project Car Progress for the feds and narcs that are listening.
That's right.
That's what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you?
Exactly.
How about you, man? What have you been up to?
I've been licking toads.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How's that
No.
been playing out?
Oh, sorry. I was just baiting.
Is that
the
what you
feds
call
that
working
listen.
on Porsche 924s?
Exactly.
Kind of the same experience.
No, I feel like licking the toad is some other euphemism that I'm just not up to speed with. So this is interesting little tidbit I'm going to get into. So the last time we spoke, I mentioned about getting the new daily driver. We recorded on a Tuesday or whatever day it was.
Yep.
And then like it was a Monday, and then 2 days later that episode went live. So that Monday we recorded and hey, I'm getting the new daily driver and I'm tired of the Civic. I'm gonna sell the Civic and
Right.
you know, blah, 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 blah.
Hey, you're all-
The very next day, like 14 hours later, it was very windy here in the San Francisco Bay Area.
It sure was.
And I was helping out my homies at Car Donation Services. I was over there helping them out, and this phantom enormous gust uprooted this like heavy duty like steel framed awning with like a big tarp over it that had been there for like a decade, cemented into the ground, cinder blocks around that holding it down. Picked it up and threw it and dropped it on top of the Civic.
Perfect.
Yes. What's
Love it.
perfect, the good news is, A, I was going to sell that car. B, very minor cosmetic damage, but on like the roof and the hood and a fender and 2 doors and on and on and on. And so it came within like $100 of getting totaled out. But it didn't total out, and I'm not repairing it, so I'm
$500
just
worth of damage?
because I have comprehensive. And what's funny is I have comprehensive coverage, which covers you for like wind and storms and hitting an animal and thievery and
Rogue wind.
vandalism, and the hand of God coming down and slapping your car with an awning. And so, but not collision. So if I got in a wreck, I'd be SOL. But because this happened, so I'm going to cash out like almost $3,600.
Woo!
And then the car is like kind of no worse for the wear because it's a little commuter Civic.
Drinks
And I'm
up
just
Frank.
going to sell it anyways. And I'm going to use that money combined with the money I'm going to use to sell the car to basically finance the LS430 completely, entirely. So I'm kind of getting a free upgrade.
That's the best kind of PCP I've ever heard, where someone comes out ahead.
And usually it's us burning money is usually how these
That's what mine is.
These updates go. And I kind of found a bag of gold. And
Awesome,
genuinely, the day after I announced to the world that I'm no longer going to be using the Civic for daily duty and upgrading to a Luxo barge, and then going to be
Act
selling it
of
on,
God.
and then did you see what God just did?
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Dope.
That's my update.
Well, mine is still burning cash. So
Let it
300ZX, I did the exterior, which needed a big refresh. That car was no doubt probably a 5.5 on the exterior scale,
Yeah.
being realistic.
What is it now?
Probably an 8.5.
Ooh.
I could easily give it. So I painted the shiny black strip, which was completely worn off, where the coolest badge in the world goes, that reflective twin turbo badge.
Yep.
So I needed to restore that. That took some work. I did the front goth lipstick, I keep calling it. Now these cars, the early ones had a gunmetal strip across the front. The later ones didn't have. And someone had painted mine to make it look like a later model.
Okay.
So I restored that, which is you have to be very careful taping off, right? Or you're going to have a very ugly looking strip.
Yeah, it bleeds through or it tears away.
It's bad news. So that came back. I applied OEM replica decals on the front and rear of the vehicle, so now it matches the part. You know it's a twin turbo. I painted all the lower portions because it has kind of a textured paint pattern, which is easy to repaint yourself. But it gets chipped. It's to protect rock chips, right?
Gravel guard.
It comes off over time, and it was taken away from the exterior looks of the car. So I put that back on. Primer. Paint, clear,
ready to go, looking pretty, all dressed up with nowhere to go.
Buffed and polished the rear bumper, front bumper, the mirrors, everything came back to life brilliantly. Still got to put some wax on it, but like I said, 5.5 to 8.5 exterior.
There we go. Look at that.
Lots of progress. God, it took a lot of work though, dude. Body work, just prep time alone, taping and covering everything, and then moving to a different thing, like doing the trim like I did. Oof. And then putting those decals on that are like $60-something worth of decals.
Yeah.
Don't mess up.
Yeah, don't look, you sneeze and fold it over.
One letter sticks and doesn't come off. And then you try to put it on my hand after. It's like a crooked
you
twin
just
turbo.
Cry yourself to sleep.
Yeah.
And then nobody will notice it, but you will notice it every single time. It's a tiny bit off.
You bet I will. That's my PCP, man. So...
Sweet.
You want to take us home, sweetheart?
Yeah, buddy. No, thanks again for everyone playing along and listening along at home. We actually genuinely appreciate it.
Of course.
Tell your friends, tell your kids, tell your wife. Don't hide them. Tell them. And thanks for tagging along with us. If you want to see us not post to our Instagram, you can do so at APA Podcast on Instagram, Another Pointless Automotive Podcast on all the places you listen to and watch your podcast. That includes YouTube. Chad to the wig.
So yeah, you can follow me at Auto Obsessive Garage, the restoration of rescuing and crap box randomness and sometimes reviews. Same on Instagram. And Frank, where are you posted up at?
Oh boy, the road is my home, as well as Instagram and YouTube. Although mostly Instagram. That's the photographer's garage. And otherwise, you can catch me here hanging out with this guy next week. So please do so. Listen along. Watch along.
Big thanks to Car Park for hosting us again. This
putting
beautiful,
a roof over our head.
Putting an Aventador in our backdrop.
Exactly. Doors open, man. Doors
Look at
open.
that. That's how you roll.
And thanks for
again.
chilling, Briz. And,
As always.
And Gruz?
Gruz? Yeah.
What's the lady version of bro?
Bitches.
Breezes? Breezies. Yeah, what's up, Breezies? Later, homies.
Take care, guys.
Bye.